Hi, hello. Welcome back to I Might Be Wrong MMA. And today's episode is going to be a tier list on how well UFC fighters would survive a Friday the 13th movie. I'm just going to go over some of the rankings real quick. First one killed. This is just bottom of the barrel. Literally spawn in, Jason's going to get you in some way, shape or form. Second tier, gets everyone killed. They end up dying themselves, but in the meanwhile they will sell everyone out so they can survive. So their death would result in about 5 other people dying. That's pretty much what this tier means. So pretty much like first one killed, but a bit worse. Maybe I should have put it below first one killed, but it's going to stay there. Dies near the end. It's pretty much what it sounds like. Gets to the end. They get an arrow to the knee and they can't go on, and then Jason catches them. Barely lives. Basically, you get out of there, but you lose a piece of yourself. Like you lose a leg, you lose a hand, an arrow to the knee, something like that. You'll be hurt. Sole survivor means you won't be touched, and you will be out of there in a flash. Probably first one out. So sole survivor is reserved for top tier guys that I think would excel in this subject. But we're going to move on to the first one, and the first one up. You know, he's all about that cake and chicken. DC, I feel, gets everyone killed. And my reasoning is, I know a lot of people will probably put him in Barely Lives or Sole Survivor. He's a great athlete, don't get me wrong. But, like I said, he's all about that cake and chicken. The minute the rations run out, he's going to get violent. And I can see him getting violent and causing someone to die to Jason, and he'd probably end up getting caught as well. He'd be like one of those, the trope in a horror movie where the good guy gets angry, gets someone killed, and then ends up dying themselves. I can see that for DC. No hate to DC. He's one of my favourite fighters. But moving on. Next up, Rogan. I think Joe Rogan would actually excel in this type of scenario. You know what I mean? I do think Joe Rogan, out of everyone named here, would probably be the most prepared, in advance. So I'm going to put him in Barely Lives. I don't think he'll come out unscathed, but I do feel like he would do alright for most of the movie. But right at the end, as he's running away, he gets clipped in the shoulder or something, and then just jogs away. I can see that happening. So, Joe Rogan, you barely live. People forget, man. Moving on. Dana White, what's the question? Dana White, do I think he barely lives? He's not going to Soul Survivor, Is he on the same tier as Joe Rogan, though? Or does he die near the end? I don't think he's going to get everyone killed. He might. But here's my logic. I think Dana White would pretty much get some people killed, but I do think he'll end up surviving anyway. I feel like Dana would be the type of person to... Actually, no, I'm going to put him in gets everyone killed. I can't really see him outrunning Jason. I can see him in an attempt to run away from Jason, trip someone, and try jump out a window when Jason gets their hut. I could see him just saying, "Block the door, I'll be right behind you," and then just running off. Just straight up telling Joe Rogan, "Hey, block the door, I'll be right behind you, dude." And Joe Rogan turns around, it's just Dana just sprinting away. I can see that happening. I can see him selling out a load of people in the horror movie just to get himself out there. But I do think Jason would find him in the end and probably scalp him. Moving on. My goat. My Brazilian goat. I don't know why he's cut in half here. I probably should have got a better image, but I'm sure you can make out who this is. Charles do Bronx Oliveira da Silva. Charles, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think he's surviving this. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how well his English would be in a stressful situation. I don't know if he would get the words out right. I don't know how well he is, because he mainly speaks Portuguese to my knowledge. I don't know if he would be able to communicate with other survivors, or even call a radio. I'm going to put him in dies near the end. I don't think he'll be get first one killed or gets everyone killed. I can see Oliveira sacrificing himself to help others escape, because that's my goal. Anyway, moving on to the next one. Another Brazilian. John Silva. You know, he's a great fighter, but in this scenario, I think, I'm going to be honest, he's the first one killed. I do think he's the first one killed, purely because I think if Jason showed up right at the start when they're all hanging out by the campfire, Charles Oliveira's reading some shit, and then Dana White's just sitting there yapping, I do think if Jason shows up, all of these guys would instantly run away, except Marab would one-shot him, but I think John Silva would try fight him first, be that sacrificial lamb, and then just get one shot. Like, just, if you remember that one scene in Friday the 13th where a dude gets his head punched off, I can see John Silva just running into a right hand from Jason and just getting his head flown across the air. So, first one killed, John Silva. I'm sorry. And it also wouldn't help if he was trying to hide and he just starts barking. You know, I think he would be the first one killed because he'd be very easy to find, even if he does run away. He'd just start barking randomly and that would alert Jason. Anyway, moving on to another Brazilian. This is a Brazilian. Alex Pereira. You know, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I think Pereira would barely live. I don't think he's sole survivor category, but I do think, you know, he lives, I don't know if he lives with tribal men, but I know he lived or was a part of them for a while. He'd know his way around nature. He'd know his way around the forest. And I do think he'd be able to run for a long period of time. He has great cardio. But he is a tall guy, and that's very easy to spot. Especially if he has the face paint and the tribal paint on. But I think he'll barely live. I think he will lose a leg or something in a bear trap. I can see that happening for Pereira. But barely lives. Poatan. There we go. Now moving on from some of the more wholesome guys, except maybe John Silva, to Darren Till. This was such a random one for me, but I had a scenario in my head and I wanted to reenact it. I think Darren Till would die near the end. I don't think he gets everyone killed. I don't think he's the first one killed. I think he does well, but I can see at the end where they're making a run for I don't know if it's a car or the escape, the exit to the Crystal Lake. But I can see Darren Till getting a fucking arrow to the knee and just going, "Me fucking ACL, mate! Me fucking ACL! I can't go on, mate!" And then just getting his head chopped off as Jason catches up to him. I can see that happening. I can really see that happening. He does well. He does well before that. But Darren Till eventually gets caught, unfortunately. And from one scouser to another, we're going fucking Paddy, lad. Fucking Paddy. Paddy Pimblett, I think he probably will be one of the first ones killed. If it's, in Camp Paddy, maybe he dies near the end. But with that haircut alone, I feel like he'd glow in the dark. So I feel like it'd be really easy to spot from Jason. I should probably rename this the first ones killed, not first one. Just to clarify. First ones means the first 5 to get killed. I feel like Paddy would be a part of them. So Paddy, I feel like, would glow in the dark. And I feel like there's going to be some trope in the movie where it's they're trying to make a plan and they're trying to gather around and make a plan to escape, and then Paddy just goes, "We need to fucking start talking, lad," and then gets stabbed through the chest from through a door or a wall or something like that. I can see that happening. I can really see that happening in the film I'm writing. But Paddy, you probably survive longer than John Silva, but not much longer. Moving on to the featherweight GOAT, Alexander Volkanovski. Where will I put Alexander Volkanovski? I am going to put Alexander Volkanovski in barely lives. My reasoning being is great cardio, can run for a while. Also used to weigh like 230 pounds as a rugby player, so he's experienced running and like charging through people. So if he needs to shoulder Dana White on his way out, I feel like he could do it. So he would do that, and also he's like he's on the shorter side and he's bald, so he'd be able to hide and camouflage himself really fucking well. Surprisingly well. So I feel like Jason would have a hard time finding him. I feel like Volk would be way too smart for any of Jason's traps. Volkanovski, probably ahead. I'll put my head like top of barely lives. He does the best. That's just what I think. Moving on. From a featherweight, we now go to a heavyweight. Derek Lewis. I don't know why I picked Derek Lewis for this. I just thought it was funny. Derek Lewis, I'm going to be honest, he's one of the first ones killed. I'm going to be honest. The power's there. He'd probably hold off Jason for 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds. I can see him kind of trying to wrestle Jason. He probably does have the power to maybe rock him, like another way in the Friday the 13th games, you can hit him with the baseball bat and it stuns him for a second. I feel like Derek Lewis would hit him with an overhand and it would stun Jason for a second. But I can see Jason waking up and just like ripping him in half. Or maybe just chopping him in half with the machete. But I think Derek Lewis will, be a sacrificial lamb, save others, but sacrifice himself in the process. Tough luck, Derek Lewis. Heavyweight go. Moving on. From a heavyweight go to a controversial go. John Jones. John Jones, in my opinion, would be... I gotta be honest. Like the man I know, I think John Jones would be a sole survivor. I think he would do what Dana does, where he just sells everyone out. And like just goes for himself, doesn't try to save anyone. Like kills anyone he can to get like further. But I feel like he'd actually escape unharmed. Because he'd just do what Dana does, but 10 times better. So he'll be the sole survivor, but he gets a lot of people killed. Like he gets a lot of people killed. Anyway, moving on to another heavyweight. Tom Aspinall. Tell me, what am I, some kind of final girl? I don't know. I can't do a Tom Aspinall impression. It's the one thing I can't do. I'm gonna put Tom Aspinall in dies near the end because I feel like he wouldn't have the cardio to escape like Jason for like he'd probably do well for the first maybe hour, and then he starts to getting chased, gasses out, Jason catches him, probably tears his legs off and like probably gouges his eyes out, So that's what I see for Tom Aspinall. I can't really see anything else for him, to be honest. I can't really see him winning this. So from a heavyweight, we now go to a bantamweight. Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell was the inspiration for this video. I fully made this video concept around the idea of Bryce Mitchell being in horror movies. So he's going to be a recurring character if I ever decide to continue this series. Bryce Mitchell, I'm going to put him in Sole Survivor. I feel like he would be able to hide from Jason. Not even sell people out. I feel like he would just have camouflage. I feel like he'd be able to spot the traps. He'd probably have traps for Jason set up. I feel like Bryce Mitchell would probably do better than John. Bryce Mitchell, Sole Survivor, the number one. He's the final girl. Absolutely amazing. Moving on. From a bantamweight, we now go to a light heavyweight. No bromo. If you're watching this, you're about to be very happy or very sad. Yuri Prochazka. Now, what do I think of Yuri Prochazka? I think Yuri Prochazka would do very well in a Friday the 13th movie, but I feel like he would be fucked over by Dana or John Jones, and I think he'll die near the end. But I'm going to put him above everyone else. Because I feel like, besides John Jones, I feel like he would be barely lives. but I can see him, like, the scenario is Joe Rogan trips and John Jones leaves him behind. Yuri runs back to help Joe Rogan. Yuri gets caught. Joe Rogan escapes. That's the way I'd see it. That's the way I see it going. He's just too good-hearted, you know? He's too kind-hearted. You know, Yuri sacrifices himself for the greater good. Well, if you want to call Joe Rogan the greater good. Probably sacrifices himself to save Pereira. Who knows? In hopes for the trilogy, you know? Gets himself killed so he can get the trilogy in the afterlife. Fucking genius. Anyway. Moving on to the next one. Ilia Topuria. This is a tricky one. This is a relatively tricky one because Ilia Topuria is a great fighter. Same stature of Volkanovski. He, you know, the only thing I debate is his IQ in general and over survival instinct. I might put him in Barely Lives, but at the bottom of Barely Lives, where it's like he's like gets out, but he's about to die. I question his IQ, but he reads a lot of books. He reads a lot of books. So I'm gonna put him in Barely Lives, but the bottom, like he's gonna be wheeled out on a stretcher. You know what I mean? That's the type of surviving Ilya's gonna be doing, and he's probably gonna have a tube coming out of every hole in his body afterwards. That sounded mad sus for some reason. I don't know why. Don't think about it. We're gonna move on. Arman Tsarukyan, another lightweight. Arman Tsarukyan. Where am I gonna put him? He's going instantly. Gets everyone killed. I can see him just being so petty. Like, he probably wasn't even trying to survive himself. He'll just get into some random beef and then just start shouting. I can see that happening. He just starts shouting and Jason just finds like a group of them and just massacres them. It's probably going to be Arman, Paddy, John Silva and Derek Lewis for some reason. I could see that happening. Like, they're just all arguing. Arman screams. Jason comes over and just fucking one by one just gets them all. That's what I think. So he'd be one of the first one kills, but he gets everyone killed, so he's going in this slot. Moving on to the next. From from one high-ranking lightweight to one of the greatest lightweights ever. Of course, I'm talking about India's bravest, Anshul Jubilee. Anshul Jubilee, what a character, you know? What a character. Yeah, I'm not going to think much about this. He's going to be the first one killed. Because it's not even like, he's a decent fighter. He's a good, good cardio, decent boxing. It's just he has no chin. I know that probably wouldn't matter much, but I can see him tripping at some point and concussing himself by hitting his head off something very lightly. That's the level of chin we're talking about. He'd graze his head and he'd probably see triple. And then Jason would find him and probably like attach him to a meat hook or something. I can see that happening for Anshul, as sad it is to say, but I will probably put him above Derek Lewis. That's my one compliment. I feel like he'd be able to run for a bit longer. Maybe ahead. Maybe it's not the worst one. Maybe he does actually run for like at least 30 minutes before he trips and falls. But Anshul, sorry bro, you're cooked. And for my final one, we have a couple of bantamweights on this list. Merab, Bryce. I think that's about it. So we go from Merab to bantamweight, go to the final pick. A very interesting pick for this video. The current bantamweight champion, Petr Yan. It hurts to say that every time I see the belt around him and not Merab. I'm crying right now. But Petr Yan, where do I think he goes? Petr Yan's going in Soul Survivor. I'm going to be honest. I just feel like he'd have one encounter with Jason, go away for 30 minutes to write stuff down, and then come back with the perfect game plan. That's the level. That's the level of IQ we're talking about. I feel like Petr Yan would see Jason kill like 2 people, run away, write some stuff down, come back. He's never getting touched again. Petr Yan is going above John Jones, but behind Bryce Mitchell. That's the way I see this, because Bryce Mitchell is already prepared. He's already got everything written down. Petr Yan's coming up with this on the spot. Anyway, if you like the tier list, please let me know. Do you agree with my takes in this video? Do you want more of these videos? Please let me know. Any other horror movie or like overall movie in general, like Apocalypse, Fallout, even games, things. We can do Fallout, we can do fucking Skyrim, we can do GTA even, I don't fucking know. Other horror movies like Halloween, A Quiet Place, I feel like they'd be really fun. Let me know. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Let me know if you want more of these. That's about it. See ya.